Hi, my name is Reagan Roden. Before I tell you about myself, I'd like to share a quote that I found by Jimmy Dean. And he said, "I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination." And I feel like this quote really embodies what ISM is all about, because it's about taking action and making your dreams come true and make them a reality. And I think it's more than just a high school class that you work in to merely get the grades, but it's an opportunity to achieve what you never thought you could in high school. Now I'd like to enlighten you on some of my interests and some things about me. I'm a senior here at Frisco High School. This is actually my second year in ISM. Last year I worked with the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for Frisco ISD, Dr. Linda Bass, and it was really great to learn from her and meet with her on a weekly basis to see exactly what she does and get really great insight and knowledge from her on human resources. This year I decided to go a different path in business and choose finance. Something that's really defined my life is the fact that I've moved 7 times due to my dad's job. And in the past, I've kind of seen this as a disadvantage, but with all of my moves, I'm now choosing to see it as an advantage because it's given me a lot of great life skills that I can use in my future. I've gained the opportunity to live in different environments and associate with different people, and it's allowed me to become more flexible and more open to change, which is very important in business, especially finance. I've learned that sometimes you have to be flexible in your life, but when you really want something, you have to be stubborn and you have to go after it and put all of your effort into achieving those goals. That's why I joined ISM. I wanted to find out exactly what I want to do with my life and exactly what I want to study in business and get a head start on making my dreams in business become a reality. I've also participated greatly in Young Life, and this has been really great because it's a Christian organization in which high school students are able to come together to strengthen their faith and friendships in the family environment that Young Life provides. Furthermore, I've been a part of Team YL, which is where the members are allowed to take more of a leadership role and help lead Young Life events and meetings and also plan those events and meetings. And so it's given me a lot of those great skills as well. In school, I like to think I'm a very hard worker and I'm determined to do my best. Okay, throughout the first semester of ISM, we're supposed to conduct at least 5 interviews, and I had the opportunity to meet with 8 professionals. They were Todd Fouch from Frisco ISD, and he's the Director of Finance. I met with the CFO, Rick Bankston from Frisco ISD, the CFO of Continental Wireless, Mike Russell, Deborah Gibbons from Mary Kay, and she's also a CFO, Joel Holford, who's the Controller of Varsity All-Star, Brian Grubbs, he's the Senior Vice President of Public Finance for Southwest Securities, Jessica Salcido from McAfee, and she's the Senior Director of Financial Planning and Analysis, and Mike Mines, and he works for Impartial Services Group, and he's the CFO and also my mentor. Throughout all these interviews, I found that there were main topics that came up again and again, and I learned some important things from these different topics, and so I'd like to tell you about them. The first topic that I found was really important was the background of each professional. I learned that a lot of the professionals had an accounting degree, which you might think is interesting because they're working in finance and they have an accounting degree, but they go hand in hand, and only a few of them had finance degrees. About half of them had MBAs, and although it wasn't as common when they were getting their jobs and working towards becoming financial executives to have an MBA, nowadays it's a lot more important to have an MBA and have that experience and education. Another big thing that I found was that almost all of them except for Dr. Fouch had their CPA, it stands for Certified Public Accountant. And in order to achieve that title, you have to take an examination for the CPA. And then Dr. Fouch got his through TASBO because he's in the school district. He did the Texas Association of School Business Officials. Another interesting thing I found about their background is that almost all of them started out in Big Four accounting firms. The Big Four is 4 major accounting firms that do the auditing and accounting for a lot of the major businesses in the U.S. It used to be called the Big 8, but then after a lot of the companies closed down or had issues, they became the Big 6 and then the Big 5 and then the Big 4. And then a few of them who were in the school district started out as a teacher, and then they worked their way up towards being a principal and then got to the financial and business side of the school district. I learned a lot about the training of financial executives, and I learned that a lot of it is on the job and their prior education that's built up over time. And it was a I thought that maybe they might go through training courses, but they actually have to go through 40 hours of continuous learning through their CPA, but they get to choose what they do for that training. The next thing I learned a lot about is the daily roles and responsibilities. Overall, most financial executives are able to manage the accounting, treasury, finance, and tax functions of their business. A lot of them also develop and manage the budget, coordinate financial action, and prepare financial statements. I learned that depending on the company's size, their roles vary because the smaller the company is, the more, I guess, hats you could say they wear in the company. So, and then the larger the company gets, the more narrow the financial executive's role is depending on their size. I also learned that the CFO works really closely with the CEO. That's the person that they work the most with. They also work with their staff, their executive team, and then the different department heads that they manage. And something that I thought was extremely interesting was that they spend 75% of their time with people. And I thought that as a finance person or an accounting person, you would be spending more time alone, like at a desk. But that's actually only the lower jobs. Most of the financial executives actually spend a lot of time with people when they're in meetings and they're meeting with other people. I also learned a lot about the obstacles and rewards of each person's job. A lot of the obstacles differ between public and private companies because private companies don't have to worry about the stress of publishing a quarterly financial statement, whereas public companies do because their public statements go out to their shareholders. So that adds extra stress to the public company's financial executives. I also learned that a huge obstacle for many of the professionals was quick growth, especially with the school district. The school district is always growing and there's more schools. Obviously, you guys have all seen that there's more schools popping up everywhere, and so they're having to keep up with that growth and keep up with the demands and while staying in the school's budget. Also, a lot of them had a lot of rewarding parts of their jobs. One thing that was really prominent among a lot of the professionals was that they like seeing the outcome of their efforts, especially as far as like people's progression that they've hired or people on their team. They like seeing how the work that they put in was coming out and benefiting others in the community. They also really liked helping to shape a vision and goals for their company. It's kind of the same thing. They like seeing how when they put in their efforts, how it's coming out in the future for their company. As I was talking to all these professionals, I realized that there were 3 very important necessary skills that you should have if you're going to be a CFO or a financial manager in general. You have to be very good at communicating because you are meeting with so many people and you're spending so many time with others. You have to be able to communicate effectively and efficiently with others. You also have to have really good analytical skills because you have to be able to analyze problems and find quick solutions and then be decisive once you find a solution that you're going to execute. You have to be efficient and not drag it out. And then you also have to be able to collaborate with other people because as a CFO, you are most likely managing other departments. And so you have to be able to work with those people and be able to collaborate with them. The last thing that I asked each of the professionals was any other advice that they could give to me if I was going to continue on as a CFO in my future. One of the biggest things that I learned was that I really need to intern because although college classes give you the prior information that you need, it's actually really theoretical situations that they present to you. So if you intern, you get that experience before you actually go into the job. Another thing that I learned from especially Mike Russell, he told me to ask questions. He said that when he was working his way up to his current role as a CFO, he didn't really ask questions and he just kind of learned from trial and error. And he said that ended up working okay for him, but if he had just gone up to whoever he was working with and asked questions, that they easily could have been answered and he would have learned more effectively. Another thing that they said that I should do is get my degree in either accounting or finance, and most of them said, although most of them had their accounting degree, they said finance would work as well. Either one works. And then also I need to get my MBA because that's extremely important now. Another thing is I need to network, especially with LinkedIn now. Jessica Salcido stressed that a lot, that I need to stay in contact with the people that I'm meeting now and keep those contacts along the road because you never know when they could help you. And the last thing that they told me is to think long-term and be open-minded. So after all of my interviews, I had a tough choice between the 8 different professionals that I talked to. And I decided to ask Mr. Michael Mines to be my mentor, and he happily accepted, and I'm so grateful. He's the CFO for Impartial Services Group, and he directs all the financial aspects of ISG. He does operations, accounting, treasury, IT, and HR. And so, like I said, with a smaller company, his is like a small to medium-sized company, and so he's able to play different roles in his company. He also has his Master's of Accounting and a Bachelor's of Science from Kansas State University. I conducted some other research aside from that primary research and interviews. For my secondary research, two of the most important things that I saw was an article about ethical stress. And I learned that a lot of financial executives do go under ethical stress because of the situation that they're in. And that if they have a lot of say in the budget of the company, or if they have pressure from their superiors saying like strict deadlines, that they'll have more ethical stress, but that if they have good peer pressure or positive peer pressure from others in their company, they're less likely to have that stress. I also learned about the CFO relationship to HR. I found this really interesting because last year I studied human resources, and it was interesting to kind of relate those two, and I saw that those who started out as a CFO and then became a human resources manager were able to look at their HR role with more of a finance background and not only do what's best for the people, but also what's best for the company and their finances. Another great source of research was going to UNT. Our class went to UNT in November, and I was able to sit in on an accounting and finance class. And I learned a lot from those two classes. It gave me a lot of valuable experience and showed me what I would be doing if I were to major in finance or accounting. Okay, so this year I plan to increase my knowledge of finance and understand the day-to-day responsibilities of a chief financial officer. I hope to pinpoint my strengths and weaknesses in this field and decide if this is really something that I want to pursue in my future. After high school, I plan to attend Texas A&M and go through the Mays Business School to study either business or finance. I'd then love to have a career in finance, which I will do by working hard and putting forth my effort needed to achieve my goals. I benefited immensely from my experiences in ISM last year, and I cannot wait to see what is to come in my future. Thank you.